Hello and welcome, everyone. My name is Lauren. I live in the New England area of the United States. I live with my husband and our two young school-age children. In this video series, I'm going to share with you a little bit of what I get up to each month from a making and creative perspective. This month, you'll see some knitting, cross-stitch, a little bit of kids' craft, and some sewing. This month I'm knitting a sweater for my daughter. It's worked up in Lion brand Respun and recycled yarn, and it's a striped sweater. It's going to have a dropped shoulder, and it's got a corrugated rib detail at the bottom of the sweater, which I've worked on this part of the sweater leading into the blue color of the sweater. And the sweater is loosely based off of an Alice Starmore sweater that I've seen in the book that you can see in front of you. The sweater in the book is knit in a sport weight yarn, and it also has some details around the neck that I just don't think are going to work for my daughter and how she likes to style her clothing. As I was saying, the knitting on the body has the corrugated ribbing leading directly into the blue yarn. However, when I did this on the sleeves, I knit it in directly followed by the gray, and I'm really not loving that. And I think what I'm going to do next is some sweater surgery and go ahead and cut off the bottom gray stripe and replace it so that the corrugated ribbing leads directly into that blue stripe just above it. Recently, a new knitting group formed in my area. I heard about it through the local moms group. I attended, and the organizer of the group is looking to give back to the community, and she's asked that everybody that attends just donate one item each year to some local organizations that help out people in need. And I decided to use this as a great excuse to motivate me to do a little bit more, and so I'm aiming to knit one hat each month for the year. So at the end of the year, I'll have a dozen hats, hopefully, to donate. This month's hat, I am using some leftover yarn that I had from making my son a BB-8 blanket. And I did a 2x2 rib with a nice long brim to make it extra warm. And I made the hat pretty roomy as well so that it would fit both men and women. And then I moved from the 2x2 ribbing into sort of a modified waffle stitch. So the stitch patterning is a knit 2, purl 2, and then a plain row, and then a purl 2, knit 2, and then a plain row. And so it's a 4-row repeat to give it that waffle-like texture to it. This past Christmas, I received a cross-stitch kit, which I completed in January, and it really got me interested in cross-stitching. And so I decided for Valentine's Day this year, I'd make my husband and children cross-stitch Valentines. The gnome you see me working on here is the Valentine that I made for my husband. I really wasn't big into Valentine's Day before having kids, but I find that any excuse to make and create for my family is always welcome. The Gnome pattern is available on Etsy. You can find that at Etamine Patterns. And the 2 hearts that you can see on the wall here, I'll link the pattern for those as well. This month, my kids had a couple of days off for winter break, and so we went down to the craft store and they each got to pick out a craft. They actually both chose perler beads, and my son, who is very into Star Wars right now, chose a Boba Fett helmet, and my daughter picked out a large perler bead set, and she made a large ice cream cone that she's going to be giving to one of her friends at an upcoming birthday party. I am no perler bead expert. My goal is really just to get them to fuse together. What I do is I iron them on the first side with some parchment paper over it while it's still on the frame, and then I take it off the frame, cover it up with parchment paper, and go ahead and iron the second side. I usually do a high setting with no steam, no water in the iron at all. And here you'll be able to see that the beads are well fused together, maybe a little too well fused together in some parts, but they'll stay together at least for the kids. My son's kindergarten class is finishing up their reading lesson. It's the first big lesson in reading that they've had in school. And as a little celebration, they're going to be doing a parade around the school. And they've asked the parents to supply the kids with capes to wear for it. I, of course, saw this as a great excuse to get out the sewing machine and make my son a very personalized cape to wear. He is very much into Star Wars, as I've mentioned, so I used some Millennium Falcon fabric that I had on hand from a previous project, and I paired it with some royal purple. I had to do a little bit of sewing just to get the Star Wars fabric to be large enough for the cape. And I used a store-bought cape that we already had on hand to get the sizing correct for him. And then using the store-bought cape, I just laid it out and put some weights down on top of it and cut around, giving a pretty decent seam allowance to allow for me to then turn the cape inside out. Once the cape was turned right side out, I then went around and top stitched around the whole top of the fabric just to get it to lay a little bit flat. I asked my son if he wanted Velcro or snaps to close it up, and he opted for a snap closure. So I went ahead and added a couple of purple snaps to match the royal purple fabric, and we made it so that the cape is actually reversible. He could wear it with either side, the Millennium Falcon or the royal purple facing outward. Thank you for joining me as I shared my February creative exploits. I hope you can take from this whatever it is that you need in your own personal making journey, and that maybe I've inspired someone even just a little bit. Thanks again.